The Self-Helpful Podcast is brought to you by Ziglar, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziglar.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining me as I talk with today's most important influencers, guides, and changemakers to uncover what truly drives them and extract the big takeaway from their personal journey and their greatest wisdom. I'm your host, Kevin Miller, and this is Self-Helpful. In this episode, we continue our series on strong body, strong mind, and how to remain fully capable as you age. My catalyst for the series is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, whose expertise is muscle-centric medicine. That's our muse, how in our search for long-term health, we often miss the vital role of skeletal muscle. Gabrielle's new book is Forever Strong, a new science-based strategy for aging well. And our podcast is the Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. And right now I'm with my great friend, Randy James, right here in the studio, medical doctor and functional medicine expert. He works directly hand in hand with patients every day who are seeking to live long and live well. You can find him at truelifemedicine.com. And since you're sitting right here, I'll ad lib and say it was so cool coming in last week. And I'm driving in and I see this face that I know, and she's a listener. And she came from, where did she fly in from? Like Arkansas.
Oh, from Arkansas, yeah.
So she flies into Denver, rents a car, drives up here in the mountains just to meet with you. And she's so excited. She just had her first meeting with you. So if you guys want that to be you, and we'll grab some coffee, find him at truelifemedicine.com, because we're recording from the True Life Medicine offices. That's where my studio is. So Randy listened to my conversation with Gabrielle just moments ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And I brought him in to get his take on these topics of muscle, protein, and aging well, and just further dig into the discussion. So there's the premise right there. You did just listen to it. I know when I walked in a minute ago, you said, as she's speaking our language. Is that what you felt overall?
Yeah, well, gosh, that's kind of like the question of everything. So her story and the way she talks about it, the way she goes into the nutrition history and Dr. Kellogg and what happened in the 70s, and so many people getting frustrated with eggs are bad for you, eggs are good for you, low fat, high fat, right? Like that's our story. Yeah. And she looks to be, I don't know, is she our age? Maybe she's a bit younger. I don't think we're really say.
I don't know.
Good point. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah.
She's not 20.
I'm sure she's younger than what she looks, right? Because that is part of the point.
That is part of it, is aging well. And I would agree too that the forgotten organ of the muscle, in a sense, of course, everybody has a pet organ, right? Like you talk to a cardiologist, he's going to say like, oh yeah, we don't give near enough attention to the heart. I happen to be more of a brain guy, and yet you have these muscles to carry around your brain, and there is an interface there, an infinitely complex interface of the muscle as an organ system in its entirety, like that concept. We could talk about the muscle organ system as an endocrine organ. I don't know if she said those words exactly, but it is your biggest influence in how your body processes glucose.
Can I ask it in layman's terms somewhat? This is because I don't understand it. I'm not a doc, you know this. I'm just, I'm trying to understand it from a easy concept. So we live up here at high elevation. And I had my blood work done recently, and my hematocrit, which is in essence, is it fair to say that's kind of your oxygen level in your red blood cells?
So sort of. It's a percentage of the red blood cells per amount of blood.
More. Okay, fluid. So red blood cells, which carry oxygen, there's more of them. So hematocrit. So if you want to blood dope, if you're a professional athlete, like an endurance athlete, you can blood dope and try to lift those. Living up here at high altitude, mine is, I think when I was a pro cyclist, the limit was like 50 for hematocrit level. Mine's 51 now. Yeah. I'm not a pro, but it's because we live up here.
Because you sleep high.
Because I sleep high. And, and work out, I guess. I hope that helps that. But anyway, so I've got more red blood cells. So I'm asking that just as a layman's perception of, is it fair to say if I have more skeletal mass, not Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever, but as opposed to very low, if I have more, it's more, the sum is greater than the parts. The muscle is more than just, hey, I've got a bicep and I can lift something. It's the more skeletal mass, I have now increased what? Health.
Yeah, that's that. And I think that's where you and I have been talking for so long, and I get, well, you too, but maybe me even more. Like I get credit when somebody looks at me and says, oh, you must be a runner, right? Or that one lady that tells me to eat cake.
I got to tell a story. Patient comes in, it's an older lady, and so here you are, Dr. James, and you're very fit, trim, I guess they would say, very trim. And she said, he needs to eat some cake or a sandwich or something. It's so great.
So that, but I have been, and I haven't read her book yet, but, talking with her and speaking the language, and even Peter Attia's last book and his comments on muscle, I'm under conviction that it's not too skinny, but my muscle mass is too low because of what you just said. And she also, I agree with her that I've missed my window. Like the window, we could say the same thing about bone deposition. Here's a good analogy. Yeah. The problem of osteoporosis, which happens to women, not more than men, it's just it happens faster. For men, andropause is this 30-year process. For women, it's a year. So there's a plummet of these hormones. Well, osteoporosis, we could say, is a disease of 20-year-olds.
That doesn't manifest
until you're 50.
Okay.
Why? Well, because your bone deposition years are, once adolescence is, so 12-ish, 13-ish to 30, maybe all the way up to 35. You can increase your peak bone mineral density up to 35, and then you're going down. Same with skin. You can have nice looking, tense skin until maybe 40. Then you're going to have crow's feet, and then you're going down. I don't care unless you do surgery, right? Like it's going to go down. Well, muscle the same way. So your peak building years, like our boys right now, they want to do that. They want to lift. They want to do those things. They're athletic. And these are the years where testosterone percentage is the highest. You're built to build.
Yeah.
And many of us don't. We sit too much. We crump around a video game or a phone or some odd kind of a screen, or you and I, it's too much in front of, work. And okay, that is the way of
explain the difference though, because right now, so you're 56,
55,
55, yeah. And your muscle mass is whatever it is. You could right now go full tilt, protein and steroids, whatever you want to, and put on 50 pounds of muscle. I mean, you probably could. True?
Well, let's leave off the steroid thing. Leave off the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. If I went full tilt boogie, yes, I could gain. But the percentage of gain will be less than if I did the exact same thing when I was 20.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me with the concept of muscle memory. Like I always thought about that. Like it makes no sense. Conceptually, okay, if you build muscle once, you can build it better again. But what I thought of, and tell me if I'm right, they were talking about cyclist legs. So I have that. And I've had times where I have not ridden. Maybe I'm still running and doing some cardio stuff, but not. And, I lose some of that strength. If I come in, I had a couple times during my cycling career where I had some extended time off, kid in the hospital, whatever. And so you're out for however, a year, let's say, even maybe I was at one time. And I came back and it was blown away at how quick I was able to come back. And I thought, is it muscle memory? What I kind of thought later in reading stuff is, man, all that time I'm training, let's say my legs specifically, I am also growing like blood vessels, extra blood vessels. Neuropathic.
Yep.
So those are down there. So when I back off, okay, a little atrophy, but they're ready to pick it back up.
And
so you're saying that overall skeletal muscle, the more we do as youth,
the more you are preparing yourself to do as old.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Like, remember how for a long time we said 15 push-ups a day, pull-ups. Mm-hmm. We're kind of off that track. And you for sure, right? Like as you heal, it's going to be 6 months before you do a pull-up again. Well, but I bet you I haven't done pull-ups in, months. And so I don't really know. This might be an interesting study, but I bet I could go do 15.
Yeah.
I'll be sore tomorrow. and it would still be harder for me to get to 20. But if you compare me to somebody else who has not done that, the advance to that will be that much faster. But I'm not bigger. It's not like the sarcomere is not actually measurably bigger. So there's a neuro pathway. There's even just the motion of a pull-up, right? Like you learn that. Yeah. I think muscle memory is stronger. You have cyclist legs, but I think that's even stronger in the muscle memory of something like golf. Super technical swing, right? Like, and then, because we could take your legs, and if we did, we've said these examples a long time before, if we take your strong cyclist endurance trained legs, I'll still last longer on the ski slopes than you will.
Yeah.
Because it's the energy application through the neural pathways, through those blood vessel pathways that apply the muscle, so the efficiency is much there. Okay, we'll take that into old age. And now we're talking about things like walking, carry the groceries. You stumble,
pick something up off the ground,
bend over and pick up a pencil, or your wife that you're holding her elbow and she stumbles into you and you want to be able to hold that. Those are the kinds of things that it's embarrassing that you and I are also losing those as we sit here. We need treadmill interviews.
Yeah, that'd be good. Well, and I mentioned that to her, and you and I talked about it for so long that we're used to, even out here in Colorado, and you go to a running event and it's so cool and inspiring. You see some 90-year-old man, woman, whatever, and they're shuffling along. But they're shuffling along. So they've got some cardio ability, and it's far better than the peers on the couch. Yeah, totally. Yep. Or dead at this point for 90 years old. That's great. But yeah, their ability to bend down, to be mobile, to be active is one thing we've talked about. We want that capacity. And then what I talked to her, and I was just talking about one of the guys on the trip yesterday, that if you look at one of these older people that they highlight in the media who's a bodybuilder, who does some weight stuff, and they're sitting there talking to them and, having them flex their muscle, and that's cool. And I'm looking and going, yeah, the muscle of their brain is rocking. I mean, they're 100% there. Like, that'd be an interesting one. If you ever find an older person with muscle who's cognitively impaired, probably an exception out there, but I've not seen them. If they've got that type of muscle, they've been doing burpees or pull-ups or whatever, their brain's working. That's what's got me.
Well, okay. Couple things there. And I think Dr. Lyon mentioned that as well. Is it like you and I also think, do we not get a cold because we think we're not going to get a cold, or because there's something else going on? And I would say both. There's an attitude there. Well, remember we talked to the doc about, do you think of yourself as athletic? Okay. Is that thinking process, because it does translate into athleticism. Are you going to go out there and do the things? So is there a thinking part that keeps your brain viable, or is it the athletic or the movement? And the answer is going to be both. And then I'll go all the way out to Dr. Ratey, R-A-T-E-Y, and the book is Spark. Yeah. Remember that one? This is way back from either the 90s or the zeros even. And just here's a Harvard psychiatrist making an argument for exercise. And the data he pulled and put this book together. And now we're 20, 30 years later, and it is incontrovertible. If you have an elementary school and you do PE first thing in the morning, the kids will test better. Yeah. They just will at any hour after that. So is there a connection to movement and cognition? Absolutely. And as a brain guy, right? Like, therefore, if I'm going to be true to what I just said, then I need to move. Yeah. And there is conviction there. And
well, now I don't know if I brought it up in the show with her. I think I did. I talked about you. Did I talk about you in the show with her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what? Okay, Dr. James, we talked about this forever. What's the best exercise to do? And your answer is?
The one you will do.
Okay. And then I asked her, okay, but if we have to err on the side of cardio or muscle, what would you go? And she said muscle. And that is different. I mean, that could theoretically alter your answer of going, okay, whichever one you'll do. And if there's a choice, though, I would pick something with resistance other than just cardio. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That now the problem with American ears, they hear that as, oh, okay, that guy
don't have to do cardio.
Yeah, I don't have to do cardio anymore. Yeah. Good, because I hate cardio. Whatever. No, there's value to cardio, and the third part there is mobility or range of motion or stretching. right? Like you need a pliable, stretchable muscle as well. So those three areas are the part of muscle health.
Wait, to that though, if you look at resistance training as opposed to cardio, you're probably going to entail more stretching flexibility with resistance than cardio. Because I can go along and ride and run and be stiff as a board.
Show me an Arnold Schwarzenegger that can touch his toes.
That's true.
So we had a competitive weightlifter in college, and when he was competing, when he was like stacking or whatever they do to really, really, really get there, his arms would be so huge he couldn't throw a softball for intramurals. He couldn't throw a football. He'd throw it underhanded. Wow! Because there's just so much muscle there he couldn't throw. But if we are talking, and this is where hearing her and looking at her website, and so she's got a guy like me, family practice trained, IFMCP. He was military as part of her functional medicine doc. Okay. If you call for a consultation, whatever, has a person just like what we're doing here, and now we've got downstairs where we are, and I told you about it this morning. The girl we met yesterday, who's a PT, but she's a personal trainer, but she thinks this way. So now I'm kind of excited to submit myself to a professional eye and looking towards longevity and strength in the future for me. If I say I'd like to be able to ski until I'm 85, I want to be able to play, I want to be able to kick a ball effectively to great grandkids. So when I'm 85, et cetera. You're going to say, I want to mountain bike and whatever the value things are. Yeah. I want to train towards that. So she also mentioned this, what's the investment into the bank early that I need to make now so that my investment is paying the dividends over time? And of course you have to keep training it. Well, so these people will then do what I would call a movement map or a muscle map. And you guys talked about this on the show. What's your percent body fat, your percent muscle mass? And no kidding, you were just in there. I said, I got to type this or I'll forget. I sent to the guy, hey, we're going to do a body comp. And she said it too. That's the gold standard of doing a body DEXA, maybe $100, $120 to get not only bone density, but muscle density. Yeah. And where is it in your extremities? And then where's the fat in your viscera? So seeing that and then telling somebody, and oh my gosh, you're skinny fat. Like that could be even worse than 20 pounds. Now she mentioned this, but there are people who can be 20 pounds overweight and still be metabolically well. Yeah. And that's only maybe 30% of the diagnostically overweight people. And of course, the bigger that is, the less chance of metabolically well. And this is where I'd put the BMI of the people in the sort of the 25 to 28 category. They're carrying a little bit of extra whatever and here and there, but they're metabolically well. That's okay. Might even be better, right? That might be the difference between you and me. If you're a thicker guy, you're like the bear. If we see a bear go by, the big bear, he's always healthier than the little bear or the skinny bear, because in the mammalian kingdom of animals over time, bigger's always better. Yeah. Unless you're an American human. Yeah. And then it becomes, well, what kind of bigger? Well, if it's your glutes, I'm going to bet on that guy. Yeah. If it's your belly fat or visceral fat, I'm not going to bet on that guy. But if you're carrying extra topical fat, not visceral fat, that is VAT. If you are over that, and, we've kind of been confused on you. If you've got an extra layer of, topical fat compared to somebody else, I'd say it probably genetic. You probably don't have visceral fat which is the inside encasing your liver or your kidney or whatever. That is not the kind of fat that's going to be metabolically healthy, but you can have topical fat and be metabolically, or have a chance of being metabolically okay.
Well, let me ask on the protein side, because you talked about us being older and you want to be able to ski and I want to be able to do whatever. Let's take that off the table and say you're C.S. Lewis. You're just an academic. Yeah. You're just an academic. All you want to be
that guy too.
I know, but to take the physicality off of it and say, I want to be 90 and being able to write a new book. what we're making the case for here is saying you would be best served to have that ability by having skeletal muscle level of.
I would say this to his face. I think Jack C.S. Lewis sold us short. We didn't have XYZ book because he smoked and drank too much and he didn't walk enough and he sat down too much, etc.
God love him. With the academics that fill my bookshelves behind us and that you and I read and revere, I'd say a lot of them were gone earlier than
I'll even say names that are more modern. I was disappointed when Dallas Willard passed. Like, he was in the middle of another book.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay. So that's the most recent one of Tim Keller also. Now, granted, the people can't hear us as saying, oh, shame on those men for eating a ding dong on their birthday.
And they probably lived longer because of the joy and fulfillment that they had and whatever. And they could have lived longer here. So I am investing, you and I, especially in, the health and wellness as you would think about it. And yet I'll call myself out here. How much am I taking myself out by allowing anxiety? That's been an issue as long as we've known. So no harm, no foul, no stone to throw.
We're not throwing any stones.
So these guys were rock stars and eclipsed us in other areas. But in that area,
I think they would agree.
I think they would too.
And that's my recent deep conviction. And I wrote that one essay as my initial essay into the foray of creating a philosophical construct to not throw stones, but to invite myself into a way of thinking that will inspire me to betterness, not only mentally and emotionally and philosophically, but physically.
So we're making the case for muscle. That is the initial thing of muscle.
Muscle.
For overall capability, capacity, cognition, everything of saying, okay, there's the proof. That's what Gabrielle's trying to do in her book, and saying if we want to be well muscle, which I would agree is not looked at when we're looking at Alzheimer's and cognitive decline and dementia of going, I'll go build some muscle. Okay. Now to do that, then now we're on to protein. I talked with you last week, or I don't know, whenever it was, and talked to some guy. I talked to a handful of people and said, all right, so I had this girl on the show, and she's talking about to maintain the skeletal muscle mass that you need for health and wellness, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which for
ideal
you,
body weight.
Ideal body weight, right? Right. So if you're 500 pounds and your ideal body weight's 200 grams.
Yeah.
You're 155?
Yeah, 155, 160.
Okay. Let's say 160 just for the math. And let's say for the math that a can of tuna, small can, I think, is 40 grams. 40, I think it's actually like 46, but let's say it's 40. That's 4 cans of tuna. I am not eating remotely close to that in protein. I would say you're doing more than I am, but I'm guessing you're not. Where would you say you are?
Yeah, we're more meat based than you guys are. So
halfway, three-fourths.
If you think about that, and if we use a can of tuna so am I eating the equivalent of 2 cans of tuna for lunch and 2 cans of tuna for dinner? I'd say, yeah.
Or put it another way, I think it's something like 24 eggs. An egg is 7 grams or what. I don't do the math. It's a crap load. I did this with somebody the other day. It was a lot of eggs.
Right. But I would say for a normal adult male, a helping of egg is going to be 3 eggs. Like if you're going to make an omelet, 2 eggs is too small. 3 eggs is kind of in the middle there of being okay. And I'd say, yeah, we all have, growing teenagers, and so a meal is a dozen eggs for our 5 people. So I'm getting 2 and a little bit. And that's maybe probably less than 20 grams.
Yeah.
And with eggs is generally, oil and fat and veggies. And then you're right.
And granted, protein, there's protein in broccoli. There's protein in whatever.
Vegetarians don't die of lack of protein. But it's hard.
Right. But they may be hurting themselves long term.
I think it is harder.
Look at this. Yeah. So everybody I've talked to is like, holy smokes. Okay. Maybe that's doable, but just unless you're intentional, probably it's not tough. Eating that much protein. So,
well, and I think she's making the case of, okay. And so my beef with her, if I had a little bit of a beef, is
she's off. She had her say. 2 shows. Now
is all of us are we want to create the 4 pillars and the algorithm and just tell me how many grams to get. I'm like, well, and so she's created a really stellar business with protein. Muscle-centric medicine. Okay. Well, okay. Right. Like you can't have everything centric. Like, and that's where
muscle-centric, brain-centric,
emotion-centric.
Okay, fair.
There's one of our favorite psychiatrists in town. It's the Center for Stress Medicine.
Yeah,
stress-centric, whatever. And she's got her whole whatever built on that. And okay, but there's also an inherent weakness there that you don't give credit to something else.
Yeah.
And so I want to just acknowledge that and say, even as we say things like this, that the blue zones guy, right? Like there's going to be blue zones that absolutely do not get a gram per ideal body weight for the 100 years that they're living in Okinawa.
Right.
They eat fish and rice and pineapple. Now, I actually don't know how much protein they get, but I'm going to bet a lot of money they're not getting that much.
Well, it'd be interesting. And okay, so to your point though, so folks, he's talking about Dan Buettner. He's the blue zones. There's 5 or 8.
I think 7 around the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got one in
Okinawa was one.
Okinawa. You got one. I think it's Nassau, something like that. Costa Rica.
Greek Islands was one.
Yeah. You got Loma Linda, California.
Vegetarian and no alcohol, no caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
in a tight knit relationship group of religious based people.
Somehow each of those places has found a soup of ingredients that's helping them live long lives. Some of them may be getting a gram of protein, but then they're not getting XYZ. Go over to the other group and the group's getting 120
extra protein per whatever, but less of these other things.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate you always come back to this. Nobody's got the thing. So if you do 120 grams of protein, you've got just the right amount of skeletal muscle mass.
You're guaranteed to make it to 90.
You're going to make because you can wreck yourself elsewhere. Now, if we take a perfect world where we're doing everything right, we're doing relationships right, we're doing anxiety right, we're doing muscle right, we're doing cardio right, we're doing whatever. But I do want to up level. Now, so here's Gabrielle's book. She makes a great case. And I'm looking and going, I can up level.
Yeah, me too.
Myself. I can do more protein. I can do more resistance training and give myself another opportunity to be the 90-year-old dude who can bend, run, squat, think, create.
And as your best friend, I would say, great, Kevin, how are we going to get back to that anxiety thing?
I know. Well, no,
and I say that because you would be at risk of spending your emotions over here. It's kind of like, what's the best exercise? The one you'll do. But golly, if that means you won't do these other things, then maybe
let's go there, because that's where you kick butt. So if you come to truelifemedicine.com, folks, shameless promotion, come here and do a package and see Randy, see Dr. James, and ask him about all this stuff. Muscle, you've been listening to these shows. We do the peak wellness episode. It's 3 times a month or something like that. We're doing this one together. She said, man, I've heard you guys talk about anxiety, meditation. I've heard you talk about food, clean eating, exercise, brain training, whatever. I heard all these things. So what should I do? You're going to understand their story, understand what's going on. You're going to do their diagnostics, and you're going to come out with the priorities. And right now, for me, you may say, okay, Kevin, I hear this muscle stuff and whatever I hear. For you right now, though, meditate. If you don't eat any protein at all right now, the most acute thing, just like the one lady or the one person you had long ago, and they're coming in and they're smoking and drinking and eating whatever. And you say, dude, right now, you said gluten is killing you, inflammation. And so if you need to keep smoking for the time being, do that. Priority 1 is getting this.
Let's do this other thing, because right now you're so unstable. If you quit smoking, you'll kill your wife. Like that'll stress you out so much. Right now, if you went and added protein and added 15 pull-ups and did this and that, and it just was more on your more, which you kind of like, because that's your wheelhouse and that's your skill set. But But I think, gosh, I just had this thought, Kevin. What do you, a question is, what's the kryptonite? Right? Like we said it this morning, the likeliest thing that's going to trip the average athletic, pretty well 50-year-old dude off your true life is what happened to you, is a musculoskeletal injury.
Yeah.
Well, maybe for Kevin Miller, it's another thing on the the rubber band. Like I always picture your adrenal gland, your stress, you're holding the pencils of your life together.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes you drop a pencil of something you care about, whether it's, nutrition, exercise, sleep, relationships, and all this, is not another exercise.
Yeah.
Because you've got your muscle memory so greased up, you can do it.
Yeah.
It actually makes you feel good. But to the detriment of this other area of the rubber band that's holding these other pencils in, and this other side gets a little dry or cracky, and you're not going to let, you're not going to wake up one day and not do your job. That's not the pencil that's going to fall out. The thing in life that falls out is going to coffee with friends or meditation. In your case, that's what falls out.
You're making me think just of add and subtract. I mean, is that a relevant thing? I mean,
if you throw in a logarithmic scale, by that. So I'm going to disagree with you there.
All right.
Adding and subtracting is concrete.
Yeah.
But if you throw in logarithms, meaning a synergistic effect of 1 + 1 + 1 is not 3. It might be 9.
Okay.
Now, the first 1 and 1 might equal 2, but this third 1 sends this up to a 9, or dyssynergistically. It might be that Kevin can do a bike ride and then do this, and it's actually pretty good for you. But if you do that in the context of lack of sleep, you went backwards, not -3, but -9.
Kind of like the aspect of how much do I run? You run a mile, it's good. 3, it's good. 5, it's good. 10, we're questioning. 15, now you're doing it for, you used to say you're doing it for performance, not for health. So I just did a 40-mile sufferfest last week in one day. That was not for health.
You went backwards. Health-wise, you went backwards.
Yeah.
But you could say, well, gosh, I felt so good. The camaraderie, soul care. And I'm like, okay, now we got to take down over here, up over here. What's the general trajectory?
And I still have to balance it out. So I still had to stop and recover. Because if you said, okay, it was great for your soul. Okay, should I do it the next day?
Do it again.
Yeah. You're like, probably not. Let's do some meditation over here.
And then there can be one-offs. Like there's a good chance you'll never do that again. There's a good chance
that's actually
you might.
true.
Well, for most people, for the vast majority of marathon runners, they run 1, maybe 2, and then they don't, right? It's the marathon world is always newbies coming in and a whole lot of people not doing them anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I would say running a marathon is never healthy, generally, if you look at it by itself. Now, if you throw in accomplishment, camaraderie, trajectory, how it influences your nutrition.
Although I love that. I want to say something on that, because if you took the average person who maybe is not super athletic and doing stuff, and they say, man, I want a new lease on life. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this, whatever. They start running and they build up, and a year later or however long they do a marathon. The benefit was what they did. Yeah.
The mindset.
The marathon in itself tore them down.
Yeah, it itself went backwards.
But a year of the inspiration and the deposits of
that's right. The capacity of running a marathon is what they were aiming for.
Yeah,
and that was the test.
Yes, not the end itself.
Not the end itself. And I would agree with Dr. Lyon. The endurance mindset of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? Like, and you said carb load and all that. Yeah, that was all wrong. Whoops. The scientists, they got it wrong. So here we are. And now we've got millions in the consequence of this. We now have 65% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic. 80+% of them don't know it.
Yeah.
the percentage of obesity, the percentage of just overweightness, all of this are kind of the downstream consequences.
You could say in essence with diabetes, can we? I mean, it's almost like COVID, dude. It's just out there. It's everybody's exposed. Everybody's carrying, or some are going to manifest, some are not, but it's out there. That's what we've done through sugar, carbs,
lack of muscle mass.
Yeah. What did you think about that? Again, not to pick on Gabrielle, but because it's a great tagline, just from a branding and marketing, I'd say, yeah, go do that. But her focus on we're not as so much over fat as we're under muscle. Because we're probably both.
It's both, yeah. But I would go like in my world, if I was gonna, she says muscle-centric medicine, and I would say metabolism-centric medicine, right? Like the muscle is metabolism. And even if you're brain centric, well, that's everything. Metabolism is just a word that means the thing your body does to not die.
Okay.
Every breath of a cell, meaning it's not really breathing, but it's called cellular respiration. So every organ system is built on cells. Resources come in, waste has to come out.
Do a definition for me, because I literally, because when you think of metabolism, we've done shows on metabolism. People think of, your body's ability to burn fat.
Right.
High metabolism, low metabolism.
Which is not the definition.
Okay. Well, then tell me, because my converse or my question then was, that's metabolism. But then over here, metabolic health, I think when you say that, most people like me, I don't really know what you mean.
Right. And I think in the parlance of the world and Google and the way metabolic health is kind of coming around is how is energy transmission.
Okay.
In the way I think is boil, either go say the words 50,000 foot view or first principles. Like the act of not dying is an energy transmission. The body has to get energy in and then do stuff and then get waste out. That's metabolism. That's
okay.
it. That is what metabolism is.
It makes me even think about assimilation, whatever,
sure.
digestion.
But then you have to keep going. You stuff in your mouth.
Yeah.
That's number one. So, but then how's your saliva? How do you chew? Are you anxious?
Can we hit on that one? I've been dying.
Saliva?
No, well, yeah. Some of my kids recently, I'm like, holy crap, you're an anaconda. Please stop and chew. and literally with one of them, okay, do you guys know what? Because it's not just me. I don't get points in heaven for having to chew your food. There's Dr. James told me, the more you chew. So I want everybody to hear this, because we're in a culture and we obviously don't get it. You can go to any restaurant, watch people, or go to the dinner table, we eat like it's our last meal. And like, if we don't eat, it's going to get stolen from us.
All right.
And I think
you're fighting for it.
I'm thinking, one, if the food tastes good, savor that stuff. And two, you're not probably nobody's going to steal your food. And bottom line, if you take that bite of, let's even call it steak, which it needs some help, you need to do 40 chews on that stuff to get enough saliva in there that helps it digest so that it goes down in your gullet, whatever it goes. And your body's able to do something with it. Otherwise, I know that I have digestive issues, and the result of that, sometimes I eat stuff and it just comes out the other end. My body did not get the nutritional benefit of that. So you eat a big, nice salad with range-free, chicken, whatever it's called.
Cage-free.
Range-free, the opposite, chicken or whatever. And you just poop it out. If you ate 2 bites, swallowed it, and your body's not, you don't have a rock star gullet that can assimilate that stuff, digest it. So,
yeah,
is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
So this is the language that I am in with every patient every day. It isn't, and I understand what people mean. I understand what you mean by a digestion and a gullet. But then if I were to say, okay, well, what does the textbook look like over here for the human that, they have not dry mouth, they chew pretty well, they do this, they do that, like the successful quote unquote digestion,
mm-hmm.
right? Like most people think, like you just did, you key in on the unsuccessful times. And then why was that? Well, what is the complexity and the awesomeness of actual breaking down of the protein that was in this cow 24 hours ago? Well, like our friend John, right? Like he got his elk and then 36 hours later, there's that protein is in my body.
Yeah.
Holy cow. This is just, it's an amazing thing.
Well, like our folks here, what is their website? Catching Dinner.
Catching Dinner.
Catching Dinner. It's like CATCHN.
Allison and Stefan Roy, ROI.
Allison and Stefan Roy. So if you want to see farm to table in essence, so they go out. So they're chiropractors, but it's dry needling. So here in the office, and they go out and they'll shoot pheasants and show the hunting, show the shooting of it, show the stripping, whatever you do.
The thing that's awesome about them though is that they also show the spirit of it, right? Like they do. They love reverence. They love joy. Nature. They love the animal. This is husbandry in its best sense of, which is what humans have done forever until you and I can go eat something and we're 15 steps removed from death.
Okay. Can we just can we just segue into the food itself now, the protein itself?
Sure. Cause she talked a lot about this too.
I know, but I appreciate that. So Allison and Stefan went out and, was it elk, I guess, that he got or something like that? Remember they made burgers? Was that elk? So they grilled it out here. So they spent, who knows, out on a hunt. They traveled, they spent money, they've got guns, bows, whatever they use. A huge expense. So there's like $100 elk steaks that we're having by here. But he's telling the story of this and then harvesting them and making ground elk or whatever they did. And here it is, and we're eating it. Right across the street, McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Some burger that was made in a slaughterhouse that will never mold. It'll last forever. And
that's right. And the cow was mistreated. The human beings that have to work in a slaughterhouse feel mistreated. They don't like that job. The smells are horrendous. The disease is rampant. The cows are chock full of antibiotics because otherwise, they get sick and they die and it's terrible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like she said, we have to feed the world.
We have to, okay, well, I'm going to go there, but one piece of that too, when we're eating those elk steaks that they're sitting there grilled, telling us a story, it would have felt offensive to just wolf it down. 2 bites, it's gone. Hey, it was great, man. I'm out. We sat there and we did with reverence, which interestingly to the blue zones, we find that as well. And even the non-blue zones, but other cultures like France, my daughter went there and she said, oh my gosh. And they eat for 2 hours
every night
because they're talking and conversing, and you take a bite of food, chew it up well, sip of wine, and then you're talking, and 5 minutes later you take another bite of food, and because it's a celebration, more so than here.
It's a fellowship.
And I'm going to pick on America because that's where we are, and we've boiled food down to just it tastes good, wolf it down, and
go do the next thing. So here we are in muscle protein. Now, the type of protein to get it in, because if you're just trying to fit the bill, then you can just slam 4 cans of tuna and do that. But I'm bringing that back to metabolism and the health and the digestion. If you want to do that well, there are ways to eat and assimilate protein better. And I want to ask you about that, about the choices that we make. Granted, you got to feed the world. Everyone listening to this probably has a level of affluence where they can make better choices than McDonald's. That's well said. Okay. You can make because that includes you and me.
Yeah.
Right. That is going to include almost everybody on the spectrum of socioeconomic, on the spectrum of well-being. So we're not saying that there is an easy solution, but even in nutrient deserts, right? Like where some of the places in Arizona that you've been, or inner city places where the closest food source is the gas station, that absolutely puts a layer of difficulty into it that we want to address. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to hope and believe that the vast majority of people, wherever they are, could make a little bit better of a choice. So then the question is, and it's unanswerable, like, okay, how do I get my protein? Like branched chain amino acids from this source or that source, and athletic greens, or this company, that company, or this cow or that cow, right? Like it's
or meat, or Impossible Burger, or what's the other one?
I don't know.
Whatever.
I agree with her. Like I do think that I don't think that there's evil people in back rooms that are trying to cheat the world. Now, other people do believe that, and the world is always
They're trying to make a buck. They're trying to increase the profit and loss, and they may do some things that are not as healthy.
And so do you,
sure.
right? Like we all do that, and none of us are sinless, right? Like that's just state that. My concern is more at the systemic. Here's where we are. Like, you know, could there be some impact globally on, you know, if we have more industrial food production or less farms or less ranching or all those kind of things? And my answer to that is maybe, but the science of that is not science, because this includes politics, social, economical, etc. I'm very, very offended at the economic engine that is overt, not even subvertly, but overtly implying that eating meat is immoral. I think that's a morally wrong statement. That eating Impossible Burger is a more moral stance or choice. Like, I think that's wrong. Yeah. And I don't think they have any clear leg to stand on that it's better for the planet or not. Because you can rape the earth with corn in the same way that you can mistreat the cows over here. And
gosh, that's fair.
Right? Like, nobody is a saint in any of these businesses. So nobody can toot their own horn as to being the moral best person. Okay, so there's that, right? Like, and it's in the debate, and me either. And the debate is going to go on forever. Yeah. Okay, so now if we can say most hearers of this would be benefited by then, okay, well, I'm like you guys. I got a family to feed. I got work to do. This is not my hobby. I don't want to read 6 books.
Just but you hear this and you want some protein. So now you go to the store and let's take a can of chicken, whatever brand. The cheapest you get. So here's a whatever. I'm just making this up. A 10 ounce, whatever, 10 ounce can of chicken, and you get the cheapest. I would guess that you're not going to do that.
No, I'm not going to make that choice.
Let's go up the chain. So you can get the next jar or can over here of organic made from whoever. Yeah. That's probably not double the cost or whatever, and it's organic is what it says. We don't know much more than that. You're probably not going to do that either. You're going to go to, and you can keep going.
Yeah, you picked the hardest one.
Did I?
Yeah, well, chicken.
Okay, go to beef then.
Yeah, okay, let's go to beef.
Okay, you get the concept. Yeah. We're going up that because beef you can get, or eggs, either one. Eggs. That's a really common one. Cage free. What does that mean? Yeah. Does it mean anything? I don't trust hardly anything at this point.
I don't either.
So if I'm going to feed my family, and now I do get grossed out. So I'm advertising. I'm one of the biggest sellers of Butcher Box. And, you know, for that to think, what am I feeding my family? Just, you talked about it a minute ago. Beef to me is the nastiest one at the lower level. Yeah. Cause you go by a feedlot like I do going back, to back roads in Texas, and you go by that, kids will dry heave. It's so bad. And I think, oh my gosh, we're going to go eat whatever that is. That is not what it smells like up on the ridge where we live. And they've got cows out there in the pasture most of the year. And smells like, you know, manure at the worst, just barely nothing.
I like that smell.
So what you hear or smell at the feedlots where there are antibiotics, they're eating, I don't know, what are they eating?
A mishmash of mass produced hay, alfalfa, and then they finish them a whole lot with corn and molasses, sugar.
Wow. So
it's illegal because, you know, we still have some moral, you know, you cannot separate a calf from its mother. I don't think so. You know, because there needs to be the initial few weeks of breast milk, of udder cow milk.
Yeah. And of course they do that for veal. You're actually eating. Well,
that's right. Somewhere in the calf.
Okay.
The thing that I think is immoral on the veal side is they don't let the calf, because you want super, super, super soft meat. Mm-hmm. So they don't let the calf move. They don't let the muscle develop. Yeah. And that, you know, doesn't seem right. So what we're arguing, chicken is hard because when you go to literally wild caught or wild fed chicken, you almost have to know the farmer. Like the mass production of that. Now ranch, Butcher Block and Ranch Foods Rex and some other, like the marketplace is getting in there. But golly, if you get that for chicken, it feels painfully expensive.
Yeah.
So the grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and if you know somebody and you play the system and all that, you can get it down to wherever the pounds per dollar is. The wild caught, sustainably raised fish, that's getting a little bit better. The eggs, well, if you trust, they're related to chickens, right? Mm-hmm. So the marketplace is getting there, and I don't want to vilify the marketplace. And in fact, I think, and I don't think it was his line, so I won't quote Peter Attia, but he restated it in his book. If we take a step back and say, okay, look, for 99.9% of human history, the problem was don't starve to death.
Right. We're doing great.
We're doing wonderful. We have, if your goal is to not starve to death and be able to sit in a chair and watch TV, this is the best society ever. We have achieved near nirvana.
Okay. I love how you put it though. If it's not starved to death and it's sit in front and watch TV, then get the cheapest chicken, cheapest whatever,
and
you're set.
We will antibiotic you. We will keep you alive. You will likely be able to, we'll put tubes in you.
Yeah. A lot of antibiotics, and you can linger for the last 20 years of your life.
If that is the goal, is to remove, and then I don't think you and I've had this conversation, but you and I are guilty of this too. We did. Subconsciously, you and I are guilty of this. Now we're talking about muscle development and those kind of things, but on our shows we've done, gosh, what about cold plunge? Gosh, what about sauna? Mm-hmm. And now facetiously to me and you, I'd say, that's great, Kevin. Or you could go outside.
Yeah.
Those Yellowstone cowboys had plenty of cold plunge.
Yeah, they did.
It was called bath.
And vitamin D called sun.
Yeah. And plenty of protein called, I killed the deer the other day, and there it is.
or yeah. Okay, so to take this though, and as I look at it, the antibiotics is just in the feedlots disgust me. And I think about that's what I'm going to raise myself on. And as we birth children, that's what they're made out of. If you are what you eat, is this antibiotics and this junk going into the meat to keep things alive. And that's there's little deposits every day, little deposits. I mean, we would all cry foul if we realized our local city water was just a drop of cyanide in every liter or something like that. And over time, then we get cancer and we sue them, just like the electrical lines and the stuff, the chemical factories and whatever, we sue them. And we're eating meat, and they've done studies on that. So to the best of your ability,
right,
whether you think it's moral or not, are you going to help or hurt yourself? The best you can get. And if you can get eggs from your neighbor or a farmer's market or the ones at the store, though, again, I have
online these days, right? Like that's where the easiest source, and shop around and use your coupons and do all of that kind of thing. And
yes, there probably is the highest paid egg company that says all the cage-free stuff. And if you look at it and break it down, they're not, it's not even legit.
But even unless you're going to raise your own eggs, you don't know. So trust.
That would be at the highest. Let's go to the very highest. The very lowest is the feedlot at McDonald's and get it for totally cheap. And the highest end would be you have a cow.
Yeah. We live in a place where a lot of people have chickens. And one guy, you kind of have to love it. You kind of have to make a hobby of it, because I was like, all right, how much do you pay for feed? And if you're buying cheap feed, what's the point? Because chicken feed is, guess what? Gluten, it's soy, gluten and soy. It's the same thing we feed our children with, we call it Cheerios. So, and the cost of feed. So, and that's where I would look at people and say, just be smart about it, analyze it, you've got to get nutrients from outside your body to inside your body. McDonald's can do that pretty cheaply and you won't die. Well, okay. What's the next level up? Yeah. And people, in the past they would say, home cooked meal. Well, then Betty Crocker came along and she, it means open a box and put some water in and hit microwave. It's a home cooked meal.
Home cooked meal.
And so in all of that, I do think that, and that's where if they are coming in to see me, then what bubbles up in priority might not be grass-fed, grass-finished beef. It might be something else. It might be, hey, just stop processed food, or just stop snacking, or just something else, right? Like each person is going to have to kind of think into that.
No, that's a great point though, again, we're not trying to sell a doctrine on that you should eat meat. We're talking about protein. So however you want to get it. She said, and Gabrielle said that you can get it as a vegetarian. You're going to eat even more stuff. I mean, and maybe not assimilate it as well, but we are talking about getting the best you can. But let's say that you're hearing this and going, okay, I'm sold. I should eat more protein. And it'd be great if I got grass-fed, grass-finished, whatever. But that, man, the expense is huge. And if that expense has you on the other side buying mac and cheese and processed crap in a box, be like to say, maybe buy the lesser cost meat and buy some actual broccoli.
Yeah.
Some actual whatever. And even there, you might want, I mean, you look at we pay attention to, we don't get everything organic. We pay attention to Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen.
Which is like potatoes. That's the only way I can remember.
At the top are always apples, peaches, berries, and then are the
tubers and stuff.
I can't remember either. And it's good to keep looking back because they'll ebb and flow.
So folks, look at that. So if you want to look at where to spend your money on a healthier food,
like you don't need organic watermelon. It's got a thick rind, and there's also the Clean 15. So the Dirty Dozen. Try to get those organic. The Clean 15, you don't have to worry about those organic. That's an easy way to just say, okay, now it's in your consciousness. You think about it. I think that's at the environmentalworkinggroup.com. They put that together.
I'm almost more prone, and again, I'm not going to make a case, just an admission to get, if I'm going to get beef, which we don't do as a family, but I'm going to get grass-fed, grass-finished there, and then maybe not get the organic potatoes if I have to choose, just because the thought of the feedlot just disgusts me. And the antibiotics, I'm out.
And we've done that. We found a farmer. We trust the guy. He could be telling us a fib or whatever, but so we'll buy in bulk once a year usually. And that's how we have done the beef. But if we run out, which we did this year, then we buy the more expensive stuff to get the grass-fed, grass-finished. But we don't do that with chicken. Right? Like chicken to me is, because when you get into range-fed chicken, your cost per pound goes 9-10. Like it's way, way up there. But I do like the idea of, once a year we'll get the, grass-raised turkey kind of thing. And okay. So we kind of, and so in our family, I'll say, let's not overdo chicken. Like so many people are doing chicken. Well, because the system has made it so cheap. Well, how?
Subsidizing it with a lot of junk and whatever. Yeah. Hey, I do want one of the yak burgers. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yeah.
So buddy, we were at this event and he got it from a farm nearby. A guy raises yaks, which some of you guys are going to have to look it up to even see what that is.
Well, up there in Hartselle, it's 9,000-10,000. It's where yaks live. Yeah. These hairy things, and they're grass-fed.
And finished. It tasted great. The texture I liked better than beef, but to the best that you can. And if it's just a basic grocery store, they're going to have some things that are organic. Look at the Dirty Dozen. I mean, this is all in the better health, food. The makeup it's a deposit. It's every day.
Deposit. And one important thing to say here to people, you and I have said that it's probably been a few years, but remember my question to you about what percentage of household income have people spent to get nutrients from outside their body to inside their body and not starve to death, like over the course of human history?
I remember you saying that. I don't remember that.
Okay, let's go back to data that we know. So go to 1850 and a farm, 90% of American humans were farmers. It's an agrarian society. What percentage of household income were they spending to feed their family?
Oh, right.
Huge. Right? If you calculate their time, their money, their effort, their energy. And once a year, they got birthday cake and other stuff. Or, they splurged in the summer on watermelon and stuff like that. And they saved up for 20 years for their daughter's wedding. Like it wasn't, and that was the only time somebody might have ever had cake or whatever. Well, then along comes Hershey and he makes chocolate cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And along comes the system.
God bless him. Though.
God bless him. I just, so,
pick it up.
Right. I'm not saying I want to go back to 1850. I don't want to have to go to outhouses and have no plumbing and electricity. I'm not saying that. But as people consider cost is it. Well, okay. So it was about 50%. Is it on average? A fifth? Can you imagine
food.
That? To food. Can you? We would have World War III.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Then let's go
Nobody would be driving a Tesla.
Nobody would be driving a Tesla, or it just wouldn't exist. Well, Ford came along when? In the early 1900s. So the thing that really, really, really changed the world, because even in the early 1900s, around World War I, still we're at clearly 70% agrarian society, maybe a little bit less. Okay, well then the world wars changed everything. So now let's go to 1950. Now we've got the industrialized society.
Yeah.
We're fully industrialized in the Western world. This is my grandpa when he was growing up. How much did they spend average household income on food?
Still a lot,
around 20%. And again, that would be World War III in America. You think 20% of my household budget, there's no way.
Let's play with the numbers. Because isn't the thing like with the house?
Yeah.
Like if you do Dave Ramsey,
Dave Ramsey was about
a quarter.
About a quarter.
So if you're making $10,000 a month, that's a $2,500 mortgage
on your house. Right? Yeah.
So $2,500. So if you're making $10,000 a month and your house payment's $5,000, he's saying, dude, you're way over the line.
Yeah.
Okay. So on this, we're saying back then, if you made $10,000, $5,000 of money, time, effort
in
was
1850.
for food. Yeah.
2,500, but our grandparents would be at that 25% mark.
Okay, 25% mark. So today, do you know where we are?
I'm going to get there. Okay. Yeah, right. I'm going to quiz you on it.
Oh, shoot.
So that was 1950.
All right,
and then Betty Crocker comes along and makes it a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper. Right? We get no longer brown bread or whatever. Now it's this white fluffy rainbow bread. 99-cent jug of milk, 99-cent loaf of bread, 99 cents for a carton of eggs. Right? Like these things. So the cost is coming down. The commodification of food is going up. And so here we are. What's the average percentage of household income, barring the socioeconomic extremes?
All right.
What would you guess?
5%?
Yeah, it's about 6%.
Which would say, if I want healthier food,
you're going to have
maybe
to
give it a bigger percentage.
So
go back.
And for us, and when we said, okay, we got to switch over, we had illness in the family, we got to make some changes, we have to. Well, and then I think it got around 10% or whatever, but it still feels laboriously expensive at 10. So and I would think that if you're going to do organic on the Dirty Dozen, if you're going to do grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught fish and those things, then, 10%, 15 maybe as a budget.
If you really went full tilt and got the best meats out there, the best produce, supplements, which we're still going to say you still got to subsidize in this day and age for your whole family. Holy smoke, that's hardly tenable for anyone.
And I don't think it's tenable for us.
So you pick and choose.
We had a friend. He crossed the line because their family was ill. James.
Right.
And they crossed the line. They're like, we only shop at natural grocers. And so they told me this. They're like, yeah, our family spends the most of anybody in the state at natural grocers.
I'm sure.
Because they had 6 kids.
Yeah.
And they were affluent. And they're like, we're just not even going to fiddle with it. Everything comes from natural grocers. And so they would shop around these giant carts. I go in there with I can carry everything out by hand.
Yeah. I get specific things.
Things. And I'm like, okay, gosh, well, they can afford it. And it costs.
And this isn't the point of the show.
No,
but now we're down an interest level. Okay, so just real quick, some of that is because of subsidization. And that's where if you see the movie like Super Size Me, or
Super Size Me is on food.
Omnivore's Dilemma.
Like yeah.
And you look at that, and the reason that you can go to McDonald's and get beef and get meat and stuff cheaper than good vegetables is because of subsidization. Yeah.
And now we're back into politics and lobbies and economic. And I get it. The corn farmer in Iowa, he's got to make a living too.
Yeah. And I don't know how to solve it. We're just trying to say is if you were in not third world country, that's not fair, but if you were off in a more native setting, the whole foods would be the cheapest things you can find. You're picking and hunting and gathering and whatever. And that'd be the cheapest thing. To go buy the fancy, white cake and whatever would be more expensive. We just have it flip flop. So sucks for us in that sense. I mean, it's great. We're not going to starve. We can get anything we want anytime.
The food will sit on the shelf. It's there for a long time. You can travel it. It can just be shipped worldwide. We are now feeding almost 8 billion people. There is, we're feeding them to survive.
If us, as we're talking, we're looking at how can we feed ourselves to thrive.
Yeah.
So we're back to Gabrielle and saying we want good protein, build muscle to be the best thriving 90-year-old that we can be.
And I do have, I don't trust American politics. Mm. I do trust American people. I trust American humans to think and to make choices worth their dollars, and to, I think our governmental system is kind of the best option of the world, and generally speaking, and all of that. So I hope that we can vote in policies, but now we have the economic system also, where Apple or Google or whatever are going to shame me for eating a hamburger. Well, I still have an Apple phone. Darn it. So we're kind of stuck into these places, but I trust human ingenuity. And then if we go to first principles, I trust that we are created in the image of God. We've got creativity, and we're going to solve these problems, not to the point of perfection or nirvana or utopia, but that each individual that's listening to this to support their family in the best way they know how, that we've got some really cool options, and it's inspiring and encouraging. And Gabrielle and hopefully us at True Life Medicine and you and your show and all of this is sort of, we're cultivating the growth of longevity with vitality.
I can't bet her on that one, man. I'll give you guys some resources. I thank everybody for joining us on this journey to elevate our own experience and improve the way we show up for others. So Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, again, her new book that'll go into all the stuff we've been talking about is called Forever Strong, a new science-based strategy for aging well. And her podcast is the Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. And I think you can find her on Instagram. She's got a lot of good stuff on there. It's probably Dr. Gabrielle Lyon as well. Randy James, who you've been listening to for the last hour plus, again, True Life Medicine, and I'll shamefully promote that. And if you come out to True Life Medicine and fly out to be a patient, we'll grab coffee. If you appreciate this podcast and want to share it with others, please rate the show on Spotify or leave us a review on Apple. You can subscribe on YouTube and watch the full episode. We're actually sitting in studio together, so you can see us hitting each other in the shoulder as we talk. You can find me there at Kevin Miller, CO, and any social media, Kevin Miller, CO or .co. And if you want to learn how to master your own inner drive, you can get that book sitting behind my shoulder here, What Drives You, from me on Amazon. Until next time, folks, stay driven.